about that. Isn't it nice to ride your bike so early in the morning?
You know, only things like this get me to do it, and I do enjoy it. Or vacation, I guess, but...
Over in the morning, I'll come bring you coffee, snuggle the admin.
What are you talking about?
Or so we can ride bikes early in the morning.
Ah. I didn't say I was trying to get into it.
Babe, you said you like it.
On a Saturday morning, Aaron and I drove up to Cleveland. I was documenting the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition's Towpath Century Ride. The organization is a nonprofit which develops the towpath south of Cuyahoga County. They have a partner organization that takes care of the towpath in the surrounding area through Cuyahoga County. Anyways, riders ride either the full Towpath Trail in one day, or they break it up and do 50 miles the first day and the next 50 miles the second day. I photographed the starting area, and then me and Aaron took off about 10 minutes before the ride was going to begin to go scout out a location to take photos of all the riders as they passed. I really wanted to find a pretty spot, but also get far enough away that everybody wouldn't be bunched up so I could try and capture all the different riders. I love the section of trail getting out of Canal Basin Park in Cleveland up in the flats. It's just really cool with all the bridges and the ride along the Cuyahoga River. Plus, it's a part I see less. It always seems like a special occasion when I'm up here because usually I've ridden from home, so it's taken, hours to get to this area. It's also the area of the towpath with the most elevation. I think Aaron was saying we had 300 some feet when we were getting around here, which is interesting because almost the rest of the towpath is flat. I think the next climb you would have is a little climb into Akron, and then after that it's another good 15 miles before you have any kind of hill, which is down past Barberton. So we rode down about 6 or 7 miles till I found a spot that I thought would be really good for photos. There was a curve and some really good lights, so I thought the riders would pop around the corner and I could get some really good shots, which I did. The one thing I struggled with is when there'd be a line of 5 or 6 riders. The autofocus on the R5 is so good it would lock right on that first rider, but getting it to switch to the next ones, I didn't have the camera set up right. I'm not a sports photographer. It's not something I do very often, so I know all the settings. I know how to capture things, but those little quirks that I haven't really studied that much is something I need to look into more before I do something like this again. If you saw my cyclocross video, that's almost one rider at a time, and I just don't have those issues there. Anyways, after taking all the photos, we headed back, but we broke off the towpath and went up into Tremont, where we were getting some breakfast. We went to, I believe it's a new spot called Martha's on the Fly, and their breakfast sandwiches were absolutely incredible. So it was a great, great stop. After breakfast, we decided to go get more breakfast. So we rode our bikes over to Levin Bakery, really, really good bakery. We got some pastries. I actually didn't eat anything there. I took it home, had some later, and had some the next day for breakfast. This bridge here we're going across, I had been across the original one many times. I didn't realize it had just recently been replaced. It looks brand new. So after loading up on our pastries, Aaron said, "What do you want to do next?" And I said, "Well, I want to ride to the lake." And Aaron said, "You always want to ride to the lake." And I said, "You're right. I do always want to ride to the lake." So we rode to the lake. We did go a slightly different way than we've ever gone before, so getting our new miles in, as we always say, for the Wander Earth website we use. And there's this kind of cool pedestrian drawbridge that you go over when you come out into the harbor this way. We hung out for a minute, took some photos. It was nice to have all my good gear with me since I had been working. And then we also met a friend of the channel, a guy who was riding his bike from Cleveland Heights, and same thing. He said he had a little bit of time and he wanted to see the lake. So that was pretty cool. On our way back, we rode through Cleveland's Public Square, which is the heart of downtown Cleveland, where all the tall buildings and the monuments are. And then we went back into the flats and we decided to have a quick beer on the patio at Collision Bed and Brewing. There was a lot going on in Cleveland. There was something going on in Public Square here. When we had passed the Cleveland Mall, there was some kind of big fest with the Tom Petty cover band. Down in the flats, they were doing a dragon boat race, which was cool to be outside on the patio because we were seeing where they were starting the racing. And then also when we were up by the lake, there was a sailboat race, a regatta going on. So yeah, this morning in Cleveland, there was a ton of activity, so it was pretty cool to be up there. I think it was probably a little past noon or maybe around 1 o'clock, but we were heading home, got back to Akron. When I got back to the studio, I laid down and just fell asleep. I just don't get up that early. It's not super early for a lot of people, but it was early for me. After I woke up, I was thinking about how it was Oktoberfest out in Kent, and I just started to picture those bratwursts, and I couldn't help myself. I hit up Ben, and there we were. He met me at the studio, and we were riding the hike and bike trail out to Kent, Ohio. So 2 rides in 1 day. How often do you guys do that? I just couldn't help myself. As it gets later in the season here, someone from Northeast Ohio, these kind of days, you just never know how many more you're going to get. And to sit inside and even get my work done, I just couldn't do it. I had to head back out on the bicycle. After we hung out for a while, I asked Ben, I was like, what do you want to do? You want to head home? You want to grab another beer? He was like, why don't we grab a to-go beer and go ride the course? The course being the cyclocross course that was set up for the next day's race. That's the last video, so if you do want to check that out, my buddy Woody hosted a cyclocross race in Akron, only a couple miles from my studio. Why not throw in a little footage of Edmund being a little goofball? Next up, I have a little compilation of some of the other rides I've been doing. I've done a decent amount of commuting by my bike to photography gigs since I've been shooting at the University of Akron a ton, as just everything's kicking off with the fall over there. They also have a new president, so a lot of events with him. I also did a work trip. I didn't get to do any bikes on the work trip, but we were filming cars. It was a drag race type event. You could see some real interesting ones, cool ones. But the reason I show that here is because that really motivated me as I was doing B-roll and the slow-mo and these cool like shots of all these different cars and these engines. I realized I really need to bring some of this back into the videos I make about bikes. You know, I do almost everything with the GoPro, and I've always thought I should use the R8 and the R5 more and show off my skills. So if you did see the cyclocross video, that's kind of why it looks the way it did, is my Canon R5 with the good lenses also brought the drone. So I was just kind of having a lot of fun doing something that was a little more professional. The reason I don't do that for my average video, like here when I go to meet my friends and I just mostly use the GoPro, is the simple fact that everyone's enjoying their ride. I'm trying to enjoy my ride and have fun. And I really don't want my gear to get in the way. And I also don't feel like it would enhance the storytelling in a lot of situations. So I do want to use that stuff more, but it'll be a little bit more specific. And as everyone's been asking all the time for bike checks, that would be a great time to do it. I did a little one with Erin when she rode her Surly Pacer, and same thing with that. I used the nicer camera, and I definitely got comments from people about the way that looked. So, I do want to work more of it in, but in general, I still like just having fun and riding my bike, and the GoPro makes that an easy way to capture it and make videos. I know a couple of people asked a little bit about how the behind the scenes look like on the channel, how I film, what I use. I've made videos about how I carry my cameras before, but that's a little dated. I don't know. Let me know if the actual filming and the technical side of stuff has any interest into you at all. I did see Dustin Klein just put out a cool video about bike photography with John Prowley. It was interesting to see that when he was photographing his bikes, it's the exact same way I was doing it in Cleveland without even knowing. I mean, almost the exact same gear and the exact same settings. As the days do shorten, the content will change a little bit on this channel like it always does. I'll do more topics, maybe a little more talking head stuff, just because we still ride a ton, but it gets dark and there's just nothing to film. People always complain about the low light capabilities of the GoPro, but if there's no light, there's no light. There's just nothing to film if you're way off-road in the woods with just headlights. I did pick up a DJI Osmo Pocket 3 last spring, which has a mechanical gimbal, so it does do way better in low light because it has a big sensor and that gimbal, because GoPros look really shaky when there's not a lot of light, which is hard to watch anymore. So I might use that a little bit. It's actually not very practical the way I shoot to do it when we do a lot of off-road stuff though. But I do want to try and integrate some of that footage in there too. It looks fantastic even during the day. I've just found that it doesn't work as well for the way I shoot my bike rides. So I do have a couple trips coming up in October. We're going to do a mountain biking trip, and then there's going to be Nutmeg and whatever we do the week around that. So there'll be content with all that kind of stuff. But as the days do shorten and we get into later fall and winter, let me know if there's anything you do want me to kind of cover from my perspective. One thing I've realized about myself is I'm never going to be that technical channel. I'm never going to be able to review bikes the way Pathless Pedal does. I just don't have that kind of experience, and I just don't have that kind of feeling, and I just turned out I'm not that technical of a guy. When I started doing this YouTube channel, I felt like I needed to learn about everything, and I am interested in everything, but I just don't retain a bunch of knowledge that I don't use day to day. So how to rebuild modern bikes and like modern shifting and all that stuff is just not my expertise. I still like to tinker with the vintage bikes, and there's going to be some more of that. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you would want to hear my opinion on, or just something that you think would be interesting for the channel in general with the kind of things that I do. I've shown this area a number of times. There used to be a stadium here in this hillside called the Rubber Bowl. It has now been filled in and covered with grass. There's also Derby Downs up here, which is where the International Soapbox Derby takes place. But it's been really interesting as they've taken down the stadium, and the stadium had been abandoned for a number of years, how this has really become a no man's land. You already saw those quads go by and stuff like that. Up here in a minute, a motorcycle comes wheeling by us. There's little trails in these woods. It's just become this really interesting spot. What you're seeing there is the Akron Air Dock. That was the largest freestanding building without internal supports in the world for a long time. But that's where they built Zeppelins when Goodyear had a partnership with that company. People think that is the blimp hangar. It's not the blimp hangar. That is out in Suffield at Wingfoot Lake. So two separate things, the Goodyear blimp and the old Zeppelins. It's now owned by one of the Google founders, I believe. They bought it from Lockheed Martin, who had bought it from Goodyear. This last bit of footage is from a commute I did out to Firestone Country Club. I had a gig for the University of Akron and the president out there on a pretty evening, so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna put on my fancy clothes and still ride my bike out there. I'm gonna wrap it up here with that footage, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks as always for watching. Thanks for hitting that like button. Thanks for considering becoming a channel member if you want to support what I do here a little bit more. I will see you in the next one.